Hello and welcome to our very first episode of CMX's In the Loop podcast. In the Loop is our opportunity to spend time with industry colleagues and friends to talk about their businesses, industry trends, and their use of technology to stay ahead of operational challenges. I'm your host, Jim Hardeman, Chief Marketing Officer here at CMX, and it's my pleasure to share this very first episode with our longtime clients and friends at Firehouse Subs. In today's episode, we spend time talking with Rich Goodman, Vice President of Operations Services, and Tim Foster, Director of Training. So thanks for checking us out, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Hey, Rich, Tim, welcome to the podcast. Happy Friday to you guys. Really appreciate you guys doing this. Really excited to talk with you both and really talk all things Firehouse Subs. So welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good deal. Hey, so for the audience, maybe we'll start with you, Rich. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do at Firehouse. Kind of what is your day-to-day role there?
Be happy to, Jim. So I am the Vice President of Operations Services. I've been with the Firehouse brand going on 10 years, but I have a very lengthy career in the restaurant industry. I believe this year I'll be celebrating my 45th year in restaurants.
Amazing.
Yes, I am that old. I'm just very well preserved. But at Firehouse, I have a very exciting job. I get to support a team of very talented individuals who are basically responsible for system-wide operational direction. Some of the areas of accountability we cover are classroom training, e-learning, all the brand standards, all the operational manuals, and new product introduction and procedural ops R&D. And then, of course, system-wide measurement tools, which is how we have a relationship with CMX.
Excellent. So is that primarily working with, say, new operators that are coming into the business or new franchisees? Obviously, you guys have tools for those out in the restaurants, but when you talk about classroom training, like who's taking that training?
All of our general managers and shift leaders are responsible to become certified within 90 days of starting their employment. Of course, the last 18 months has kind of stretched that 90 days a bit. And we are responsible for seeing their classroom portion of the training as well as producing their manuals that they follow in the restaurants that they're training. We don't actually do the physical training in the restaurants. That's left up to the field teams to do. But we give them the template, so to speak, on how to move forward. And it's basically a 6-week training program process that culminates with the classroom portion, which Tim will get into a little bit because that's one of his primary roles.
Super. Yeah. So Tim, introduce yourself, kind of same questions. What is your role at Firehouse? What does day-to-day look like for you? And then maybe just a little bit about how you and Rich work together in your area.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I always say I grew up at Firehouse. I started at Firehouse, my very first job when I was 16 years old. So,
wow.
Working up, was a team member, then a general manager for a handful of years. And I joined Rich's team in 2015. He kind of just hit on what my, primary role is. So we lead the classroom part, which is not so much a classroom, it's a virtual classroom nowadays. But prior to the pandemic, Rich and I would travel all across the U.S. And in Canada as well, holding these classes, as well as where we're headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida as well. So, besides that, I'm obviously the lead for all things CMX, which I'm sure we will talk a lot more about as we go through this.
Awesome. So I know Firehouse has a really interesting backstory. So maybe Rich, tell us what the brand's really known for. Tell us the backstory. I think our audience would really find that interesting if they don't already know it. So tell us a little bit more about Firehouse and how big are you, what states are you in, how many restaurants, etc.
Oh, absolutely. It is a very interesting background story. We were founded in 1994 right here in Jacksonville, Florida. And it's two firefighting brothers, Chris Sorensen and Robin Sorensen, who were actual firefighters, and they wanted to. They've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, and they wanted to bring the concept of family and philanthropy and bring it into a restaurant brand. Hearty portions of food, which is what we're known for, high quality meats and cheeses, and really take that firefighting background of the meals they had. They often talk about the meals and camaraderie they had at the firehouses. As a matter of fact, their dad was 45-year retired captain of the firefighting system. So, they brought all that forward. Opened up their first restaurant, like I said, here in Jacksonville in '94, and Robin will be the first to tell you they never knew if they'd go beyond the first restaurant. And here we are 26 years later, and we are looking at 1,200 restaurants, and we're in almost every state, plus Canada and Puerto Rico. We're even in Alaska. We haven't hit Hawaii yet, but we're in Alaska. We have 2 locations that are just knocking it out of the park up there. So it's a great background story. We like to say we're the real deal. It's not a themed restaurant. We truly have a firefighting heritage and background.
And the foundation is very active, right, in raising dollars and.
Right. If the food is our sustenance, the foundation we consider the heart. It was founded in 2005 in the aftermath of Katrina. The team went back long before my day, and they went out to New Orleans to help at the time what they thought would be to support firefighters out there and first responders, really, and feed them. And it turned out to be just much more than that, as we all know, the devastation. And it was on their trip back that the concept of creating this philanthropic arm where our goal is to support and help first responders across the nation. And to date, it's been, we've donated over $55 million in equipment and support to not only first responders, but to military veterans, educational backgrounds, things like that, all over the country.
Oh, it's incredible. It's an incredible story, and it's fun to work for a brand that has that additional mission and aspect to it. I'm sure, really incredible. Guys, there's so much that has happened in the industry over the last 18 months with COVID, and some of those have been just really difficult changes, but there's been a lot of really interesting innovation and change as well. So. Maybe turning focus to Tim. Tim, what are some of the things that are kind of keeping you up at night as it pertains to what's going on in the industry right now? Maybe your role, things that you're seeing out in the field. So what's keeping you up at night? What projects and things of concern are you focused on right now?
A lot. Besides my kids keeping me up at night, which is a handful in itself. I mean, our restaurant. In the restaurant industry as a whole, I mean, we're challenged every single day. Pre-pandemic, it was a very challenging industry, and in the pandemic now, and hopefully coming out of it, it's always going to be a challenge. So, for us in my role, it's with training and development, is trying to find the best way for us to reach our managers, and their teams to help with some of the issues with staffing and hopefully retaining employees. And, we could go on and on. Every day is a new challenge in our industry, and using CMX and the technology that's available to us, we've tried to combat that a little bit with making some tasks in restaurants more efficient, not pen and paper, but using tablets, devices to handle some of those restaurant day-to-day tasks as well. But the challenges in keeping me up at night, man, it's never ending. So that's just the life we live in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. Well, and you're doing a lot more virtual. You're not traveling as much, but this probably the amount of change that you're experiencing is way more frequent than in years past, I'm sure.
No, for sure. And Rich may chuckle at this, but I may have not been the most receptive person to change pre-pandemic. I told you I grew up at Firehouse, so I always like to do things a certain way. and basically everything has changed, since then. So it's, like I said, it's something that we had to adapt to very quickly, and that's something I'm very proud of. Firehouse as a whole, as we adapted really quick to help our operators succeed.
Makes sense. Rich, same question for you. Kind of what's keeping you up at night? What projects are you focused on? Are they the same as Tim's, or you've got a different focus right now going on?
Well, like I said earlier, I've been in the industry 45 years, and I thought I've seen it all.
Yeah.
Through hurricanes, through private equity acquisitions with other brands. Like what's left? Well, and 18 months ago, it was like the curveball of all curveballs got thrown at me. And it's a challenge. What keeps me up at night is, what if this happens again? We're going to be a little more prepared for it, but what new things are going to face us? When it happened the first time, Firehouse is not a drive-through brand. So we do have about 50 or 60 drive-through locations, but that's 1,200 restaurants. So that's not going to get us through. So we very, very quickly adapted. We created curbside delivery. What would normally take probably 6 months to test and validate, we had it rolled out in 2 weeks. It may not have been perfect, and we went back and we fine-tuned it and tweaked it, but we had that rolled out in 2 weeks. And so moving forward, there's things like the last 6 months, if anybody that's in the restaurant industry knows and understands, supply chain issues are popping up daily. Well, what does that mean for my department? Well, if all of a sudden tomorrow we find out that a particular proprietary seasoning that we use is no longer available, we have to come up with an alternative procedure, and we have to get it out to 1,200 restaurants. Or amongst our distribution chain, trucks that are 2 days late in getting to a restaurant. So a restaurant that's normally getting a delivery twice a week is now getting it once every 10 days, if they're lucky. Well, how do we adjust and help those restaurants along the way? So every morning I wake up and I open up my email and I'm like, okay, what's going to come my way today? And again, most recently, it's been the challenges of supply chain and how that impacts operations daily.
Is Firehouse also experiencing a lot of just the issues that are kind of nationwide around labor and finding workers and people to be in the restaurants? Has that had an impact on how many shifts and how many days open and all those types of issues?
Tremendously. We typically were a brand that's open 7 days a week, minimally from 10:30 to 9 o'clock. Now we are allowing restaurants to submit to us when they need some flex hours, close early, open late. We, for the first time ever in our history, we allowed restaurants to close this year on July 4th as well as September, because coupled with the staffing challenges, we're also facing our best sales volumes we've ever seen in our 25-year history.
Amazing.
It could be because a lot of restaurants didn't survive, and I feel bad for them. Their loss ultimately has turned into our gain, but we don't have the labor where the wages, it's just tremendous. And then even going back to the distribution challenges, some of it is the distribution centers don't have drivers, or they don't have people to unload trucks to load our trucks. Or you can go all the way back to the plants, where plants are getting hit with a COVID outbreak and they have to shut down for a week. So, and the same thing's happening to us when there's a COVID outbreak in our restaurant. We close down. Now we can get up and running again with following our protocols in a day, but we're still facing that on a regular basis. So no, labor, staffing, everything has been a challenge for us.
Everything. Yeah. Amazing. Incredible. Maybe on the flip side, what's got you guys excited about the industry right now? What's getting you up in the morning? What's motivating you? Rich, you've been in the industry, as you said, a long time. Like, what's exciting about what's happening in the industry right now?
Well, navigating these uncharted waters. I mean, think about
Yeah.
it. Here
It's
I
a
was
new day.
I was in the twilight of my career. I probably would
Yeah.
have been thinking seriously about retiring a couple years ago. But it's like, I can't leave now. This is too much fun. This is new. I love the challenge of what do we face today and how do we overcome that obstacle? And to me, it's the same things that keep me up at night, are the same things that get me jazzed the next morning. It's like, oh wow, I won't steal Tim's thunder, but the shift to virtual training has been just amazing. So Tim, why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, Tim, what's going on in your world that's exciting?
Yeah, virtual training. It's something that I never thought I would be doing and enjoying as much as we do, but it is something that we launched shortly after the pandemic started, and kind of the mad dash to integrate into our LMS and using Zoom. And it's something that has been a tremendous success for us, and it's keeping me very, very busy every single day.
Yeah.
When we hold these classes, we hold them regularly every other week. So new franchise owners and new general managers, and really hearing firsthand from them what's going on in their local firehouse and how we can help it as well. When we did it, the classroom part, it was a little bit obviously more difficult for people to attend, and we may not see people for weeks or months after they were already put into a position. Being virtual, we can interact with these new managers almost instantly when they get promoted into a position. And for me, what gets me going and why I wake up excited to go to work every day, is that, and it's the resiliency of our team, of our operators, the franchisees and their teams. We just talked a whole lot about all the challenges that they face every day. So in our role is how can we lessen the burden to the best of our ability each and every day. And that's something that for someone like me who lives and breathes Firehouse, it's really exciting to get to impact that every day.
Yeah, if I could add something to what Tim was saying too, the unintended consequence of virtual training is, even if the pandemic were to go away completely, I don't know if we'll ever go back to live classroom training anymore, because the reach of this is so far greater of who we're able to touch. I mean, we used to do 24 classes a year, 12 in Jacksonville, and then 12 remotely around the country.
Right.
But we were only touching that little geographic area. So now anybody at any point can sign on to a class and get that certification needed. And then the other side of it, of course, is the financial advantage of not having to pay for travel for 2 or 3 of us to go on the road, and the hotels and the meals. And there's no way my CFO is ever going to approve going back on the road after we've just shown for 2 years we can be just as effective virtually.
Yeah, I think I think the biggest reason why Rich doesn't want to get on the road again is he's tired of eating that hotel breakfast every morning. So
yeah, I don't think any of us are missing that for sure. Yeah. Do you think it's also opened you guys up to just having more access to more talent and more people, just because you're not confined to a geographical location? If you're recruiting new people to the team, you just have more areas that you can focus on for recruiting.
I don't think so much that at the restaurant level.
Sure.
But I would say from the corporate level, now that we're not locked into working in a brick and mortar office, we have a lot more remote talent that we can draw from, where maybe people were extremely capable of fulfilling a position but didn't want to relocate and live in Jacksonville, Florida.
Makes sense. Cool. Well, guys, we can't have a podcast with CMX without talking about CMX software. So I would love to talk a little bit about that. Tim, would you mind just kind of giving, the audience an overview of how you got started with CMX? What do you use CMX for, and kind of how has that evolved over time? Would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We first transitioned to CMX in 2019, so we're coming up on 3 years, of being partnered with you all, and it's something that when we initially joined, it was primarily for the operations side of it. So our area reps, fire marshals, our field operations team, we would go out and do restaurant visits. We're checking all things ops, quality, service, cleanliness, and those kind of things. We would do them about 6 times a year. So every other period as how we would do it. So on a given year, we'd have over 6,000 of those visits that were done, close to 7,000 as well.
Wow.
And really from there, once we joined CMX, it was like, hey, what else can we use the software for? And it's something that with using Activity Studio, we're able to easily build out new activities regularly. So our real estate and construction team, we built out a scope of work form. So basically, it's like a construction punch list for any restaurant that is transferring ownership or coming up on successor planning. We've recently just launched with our marketing team for their field marketing leads to use what we're calling a POP, which is a point of purchase report. So when their teams are visiting restaurants, they can go impact and look at the marketing materials that are there as well. And then, really what I'm most excited about is what we launched a little bit earlier this year. With our, what we call it a station log, but for the folks from the restaurant industry, you would know it as your red book in the restaurant. So trying to take that really old school mentality of pen and paper and trying to make it into the digital space. So your day-to-day checklist, your walkthroughs, your temperature logs, and even a cash log, we've created digitally using CMX, and it's an option that's out in our field now, and in every month I'm seeing our usage increase on that. A lot of people were clamoring for it over the years, and Rich can attest to that. People always wanted to go digital, but when push comes to shove, like they're so rooted into doing something a certain way, kind of like how I am. But like Tim, but kind of taking that and then really just as they get exposed to it and start using it a little bit more, we're going to keep gaining traction on that throughout our system. So that's something that is really exciting. And there's in total we have like 17 active activities currently with CMX, and there's always something that our field ops team or someone else is coming to us like, hey, can we transition this into CMX? So we're going to keep building out the program for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Rich, you said you've been in the business for a long time. How have you seen kind of technology, the use of technology in the restaurant change, and has that really accelerated because of COVID, or as Tim said, do you feel like it was just a natural progression that people in the field were clamoring, as he said, for those digital experiences? So what has kind of been your experience in recent years, and has COVID actually really changed that?
I'd say the biggest impact that COVID had is our percentage of online ordering. So,
for sure.
Again, prior to a pandemic, we'd have 35-40% of the people dining in, maybe another 40% or so taking it to go, and maybe 10% or less were ordering it online and coming in and getting it. Well, now those numbers have almost completely flipped. We've got 10 to 15%, even with dining rooms fully reopened, people are not coming back and sitting in our dining rooms. So they are ordering in advance through our different ordering platforms, whether it's through our app or our website. We're even working on right now using a centralized call center because our phone-in orders have grown exponentially, and you got a cashier answering a phone who's also got a lobby full of people. I mentioned earlier, our sales have been at record levels. So you got people in the lobby, the phone ringing, you got online ordering coming. So we're using a centralized call center. Haven't launched it yet. We're still in beta testing. But that's going to take a huge burden off the restaurant. But that is also technology because it's going to come in directly into our point of sale system. Additionally, I mentioned before curbside. Well, curbside isn't just a matter of saying, okay, we're now going to do curbside. There's a whole technology piece behind it. And while we launched it in 2 weeks, we did not launch it in the most efficient way possible, which is having the guests have the ability to, when they arrive, click a button on their mobile phone or handheld device and somehow notifying the restaurant inside. So So those types of technology is also growing tremendously. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's just a lot of different ways we're using it, and
Yeah.
it's basically COVID has put us on a hyperdrive path to get there.
Yeah, I mean, who would have ever thought a call center was what you needed to back a restaurant location for taking orders? I mean, it's an incredible shift, right? In the
Hmm.
operating model for sure.
Yep.
What are some of the benefits you've seen, with some of these changes? Is from a guest experience or a visibility or just satisfaction for the operators? Like, what are some of the overall benefits you guys have seen from some of the addition of the things Rich, you're talking about, and even Tim with the CMX software? What are some of those benefits you've seen over the last, say, year and a half with these changes?
Well, I can tell you from a leadership standpoint, and I
Hmm.
sit on the leadership team, and CMX has given the leaders of our company the visibility into the restaurants that we did not have before. So
Okay.
where everything else prior to, and the restaurant audit form, we've been doing that for many, many years, even before
Right.
CMX. But all these other tools now, our CFO, our CEO, the senior VP of operations can just log into the CMX platform and look and see. One of the tools Tim did not mention was we started doing business reviews monthly
Mm.
with our
Right.
franchisees. So the leaders of our company can go in and say, okay, let's see how this particular franchisee did in their last business review, where they're reviewing things like their profit and loss statement
Mm.
and their restaurant visit audits and their business plan moving forward. So I think that's the greatest advantage we have, is that we can be at anywhere in the country, log on to the platform
Right.
and take a look at whether it's all the tools Tim mentioned, the marketing, the real estate successor plans, our restaurant visitation. It's a tremendous benefit for us.
Makes sense. So a lot of just visibility and the ability to react to the data that you're getting and make changes more rapidly. It seems to make good sense for sure.
Yeah, and I was going to add on to that. You hit it right there at the end. Make changes rapidly. So with
Yeah.
CMX, when COVID first hit, we were easily able to hop right in an activity studio, make some changes around
Right.
because our what we call a fire report, so our restaurant visit, we had to change a lot of things about that to make sure
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we are now
Yeah.
upholding the what we call at the time the new normal standards of a
Right.
firehouse, and we were able to very quickly get in there and update that and publish it out and send it out to the system in a matter of minutes, if not hours, to send that out. And
That's incredible.
that was a huge advantage for us compared to a
Well, and yeah.
previous vendor.
And we're still modifying it as we back off on
Right.
certain things. Once the decision is made, Tim is usually the second phone call that gets where he says, Tim, we
Yeah.
need you to go into the fire report and we need you to now change this question.
Yep.
Amazing. Yeah. Do you think that's changed kind of just, do you feel like, maybe the operators feel really supported because of how responsive you guys have been? And I mean, has that changed kind of it's been a challenge like we've talked about, but just, it seems like that being that responsive to the field, and kind of, really working with them hand in hand through these challenges. I would imagine that it's really made a difference from the operator standpoint in the field and how they feel about working with a brand like Firehouse.
I can tell you firsthand that our brand has come out of this pandemic stronger than ever
Mm.
before, and the relationship with the franchisees stronger than ever because of the initiatives that were put in place the
Mm.
first 6 weeks when everybody
Yeah.
was scared, when
Yeah.
we put royalty and advertising fees on deferred, and then we ended
Mm.
up forgiving royalty payments for the first, I think it was probably 4 months,
Incredible.
because my boss, our CEO Don Fox, had the vision of knowing that we need to do whatever we can to help these franchisees keep their doors open. Because once you
Yeah.
close your doors, it's going to be that much harder to get them back open. So Don gave all of us the autonomy to do whatever it took, whether that was modified hours, modified menu, again, the forgiveness or deferred initially of royalty and advertising, to keep those doors open. And gosh, those first couple of weeks we were thinking, what are we going to lose? 400 restaurants? At its worst, we had maybe 50 restaurants closed, and of those 50, all but maybe less than a handful have reopened back up. And as I said, we're having our most solid years ever. So
Incredible.
I think the responsiveness of us, the ability to push out whatever needed to be done to adapt to the changing environment. Tim was in the restaurants at the end of week 1 with a video camera on his shoulder, walking around showing, we called it the new normal video.
Yeah, wow.
Oh yeah, no,
Incredible.
I still vividly remember that, and staying up till like 3 a.m. trying to edit that video because we had to get it out like the next day.
Get it out
over the weekend because our restaurants needed that visual of, hey, this is what your firehouse needs to look like going forward. So
amazing. What's next for you guys? I mean, what's the future projects look like? Maybe the next 6-12 months. What are you focused on next, Rich?
Well, if you're talking technology, I would say, how do we leverage technology to help with this labor and staffing issue? Because it's not going away.
Yeah.
And some of the things we're looking at are kiosks in the restaurants. I know that's not new to the restaurant industry, but it's new to us. And again, going back to our founders and how we were always just a family-owned, and still are family-owned and operated, and you know, going impersonal with kiosks was not something we ever thought we would want to do. And now we're looking very seriously at it because it's going to help with the staffing. The other side of technology, I would say, is getting tablets into the hands of every restaurant. Tim is very, very passionate about that, so I'll let him talk more about it.
Yeah.
But the opportunity for tablets in our restaurant are endless. Tim?
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a huge proponent on that. We talked about the digital station log earlier, you know, to make, and we just talked about trying to make life easier and more efficient for our team, and really it's embracing technology first and foremost, and then, you know, using the tablets for many different things. And you know, we have CMX on our intranet, which we call FireCloud, which, you know, your team helped us integrate earlier this year, at actually the end of last year as well. So we have that single sign-on ability to where they can hop right in, the restaurant team, and hop on our LMS, do their you know, e-learning training. They can get right into CMX and start doing their task and activity for the restaurant too. And you know, the way I look at it, you know, we're coming up on 3 years, but really we're only scratching the surface on what we can continue to build in CMX. So when we first when we first joined, it was like, hey, restaurant audit, we'll get that taken care of, and then things kind of just organically started appearing. And you know, for the benefit of your team, every time I bring something to the team, you know, it's met with open arms, and that's something that we're truly appreciative of, is that you guys are willing to, you know, continuously innovate, and that's got somebody like me that's excited to work with CMX for sure.
Yeah, well, that's definitely what gets us up in the morning. I mean, we love those challenges. We love, you know, trying to get that input and that feedback from our customers. And, you know, Firehouse has been such a great partner in that perspective for sure. So we thank you guys. And I got one last question for you. I know you guys both like to play golf. So who's the better golfer? And I know you guys have a golf tournament coming up. So tell us a little bit about that, and who's gonna be the better of the two of you guys on that day.
Well, our golf tournament is our annual tournament to benefit our Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation.
Excellent.
And we raise a lot of money thanks to many, many sponsorships of our partners and vendors. But as far as Tim and my golf game, I like to liken it to kind of like grading on the curve. And really, it's whoever plays less bad that day is the better golfer. We both play at golf.
At golf.
And more than once on the course, you'll hear me turn to whoever I'm playing with and say, "This is why I make sandwiches for a living."
Yep, for sure. 100% agree with that. I'm a terrible golfer.
Awesome.
But I love it.
Terrible
but I love
golfer.
it.
Yeah,
Never
that's
have
great.
I been so bad at any sport that I enjoy doing as much.
Much, yeah. Well, fair enough. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been really great. Thanks for joining us today on the podcast. At CMX, we love working with you, as I said, and you guys have been really great partners, and looking forward to continuing to partner in the future and keep taking on those new challenges, Tim, that you put in front of us, and really appreciate both you guys. So thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the audience for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. Great first podcast with Rich and Tim. And if you're interested in being a guest in the future on our podcast, or know somebody who would like to be, we'd really love to chat with you and have the opportunity to include you in an upcoming episode. And until next time, thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jim.
Thank you, guys.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for this podcast episode of In the Loop with CMX. If you like what we're doing, then please do leave us a review and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube or podcast channels. That way you'll be notified automatically about each new episode as we produce them. You can also be part of our podcast as a guest. Get in touch through our website where you can also learn more about us, our clients, and the CMX One EQMS platform. Just go to www.cmx1.com. Thanks again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.